You can feel the change happening, can't you? The kind of change that doesn't start with an explosion. It's quiet, a whisper here, a spark there. A little game you've never heard of, made by 5 people in a Discord server, suddenly outsells the latest multi-million-dollar blockbuster backed by a team of hundreds. And at this point, you're not even surprised anymore. That's the wild part, the fact that we've all just gotten used to it. That it's no longer shocking when an indie game with a fraction of the budget, no motion capture studio, no photorealistic trailers, and zero marketing campaign absolutely runs laps around something AAA. And I don't mean in a cult classic, critically underrated kind of way. I mean in sales, in relevance, and in how much people actually care. Because let's be honest, the most talked about games right now, the ones actually moving the industry forward, they're not coming from the companies with the deepest pockets. They're coming from the ones who don't have any choice but to get it right. We're watching this happen in real time. The collapse of trust in bloated franchises, the growing fatigue with $70 games that launch half finished, the rise of games that cost less, deliver more, and dare to actually respect your time. This isn't an indie boom, it's not a wave, it's a reckoning. And the AAA industry is not prepared for it. So today, I want to talk about why indie games aren't just catching up, they're overtaking. Why players are choosing heart over hype. Why the once scrappy underdogs are now standing on the necks of giants. Not by force, but by simply being better. Because this just isn't a feel-good story about the little guy winning, it's a warning, a shift, a statement. AAA will bow down to indie, not because they want to, but because the players have already chosen their side. At some point, and I don't even know when, but we stopped trusting AAA games. We didn't make a big announcement, we didn't gather around and say, alright, that's enough. It just happened. Quietly, gradually, like water wearing down stone. One broken promise at a time. A game launches buggy, you forgive it. Another launch is half finished, you wait for a patch. A third one launches with microtransactions in a $70 package. And suddenly, you realize you're not excited anymore, you're cautious. And that's the thing, trust doesn't vanish all at once, it fades, it corrodes. And AAA publishers have been eroding that trust for years without noticing. Or worse, without caring. You used to see a game at E3 from a AAA studio and think, oh man, that's day one. Now you see it and I bet your first thought is this: how bad will it be at launch? How many patches will it need? Will it even be playable on release? I bet you're thinking those things, huh? I know I am. And when that type of thinking becomes your default, that's when the door opens. That's when players start looking around for alternatives. And that's when indie games, the quiet, thoughtful, often weird little experiences on the edge of the store page, suddenly become a safe bet. Because indie games don't have to be perfect. They just have to be honest. That's what AAA forgot. They thought it was about scale, about how many cinematic pieces they could throw at us in 4K. But it was never about that. It was about feeling something real. And you don't need a $200 million budget to pull that off. You need care, you need vision, and most of all, you need to respect the player. And right now, AAA studios are struggling to do that. They're out here trying to squeeze revenue out of every corner of their game before they even ship it. They're building seasonal content roadmaps before they build functioning launch builds. They're selling deluxe editions that don't even guarantee a finished product, just early access to the mess. Meanwhile, on the other side of the market, a team of 5 people is pulling out a game that you can buy once, play forever, and walk away from feeling full. Not drained, not bitter, not like you just did a job, but full. And that's why trust matters. This is why players are shifting. Because you can only disappoint people so many times before they start looking elsewhere. And indie games, even the ones that stumble, still feel like they're made for you. You know what I'm saying? They're not trying to impress investors, they're just trying to make something cool, something thoughtful, something playable. It's even gotten to the point where indie devs, many of whom don't even have full studios, are being compared side by side with billion-dollar franchises and winning. Like, really winning. Look at the conversation around games like Animal Well, Pacific Drive, Nine Souls, Little Kitty Big City, Another Crab's Treasure, and of course Expedition 33. These aren't just sleeper hits anymore. They're leading the conversation, dominating wish lists, climbing charts, getting more organic buzz than some of the most expensive AAA releases of the year. And they're not even doing it with big name actors, with multi-million-dollar trailers, with some executive barking about engagement strategies. These games weren't built to trap you, they were built to speak to you. And this is not a trend. I think this is a vacuum being filled. AAA stopped listening, stopped innovating, stopped believing that a tight, confident idea was more valuable than a bloated roadmap. And so, indie stepped in. And they stepped in with games that aren't trying to be everything, just something done well. And yeah, indie games aren't flawless. They never were. You still find jank, bugs, rough edges, but you can feel the intent. You can feel the care. Because even when they miss with heart. And in a time when marketing can overshadow substance, intention is everything. You know, it's wild how trust has become the new currency in gaming. Not ray tracing, not frame rates, not celebrity cameos, trust. And AAA, they've burned through theirs. They spent it on games that launched broken, on $70 price tags with $30 season passes, on deluxe editions that offer early access to content that barely works. They gambled everything on brand loyalty, assuming players would keep coming back just because of a logo. But logos don't mean what they used to. People trusted Rocksteady. They trusted Blizzard. They trusted CD Projekt Red. They trusted Naughty Dog. And now, every one of those names makes people flinch. What happened to Suicide Squad? Is Overwatch even Overwatch anymore? And why is The Last of Us being remade before it even needed it? I'm telling you, trust eroded. Meanwhile, nobody knew who Billy Basso was before Animal Well. People had no idea Red Candle Games was even working on Nine Souls. And then you've got Akabaka, Aggro Crab, Don't Nod, Ironwood, Sabotage Studio. These aren't household names, but they're becoming ones. Not because of marketing muscle either, but because they've earned it. And they didn't earn it with scale. They earned it with soul. And that's what AAA is missing now. They've got the size, the budget, the performance capture, the orchestra, but the soul, that's pretty much impossible to fake. And players are finally picking up on it. So yeah, the trust didn't vanish overnight, it slipped away, quietly, one player at a time. And where did it go? It went to the games that didn't treat you like a user. It went to the teams that actually give a crap. It went to the ones building experiences, not products. There's something happening in indie gaming right now that feels too massive to ignore. And I'm not talking about years ago. This isn't about Hades or Celeste or any other of the classic indie hits that people keep recycling in lists. It's about recent times, 2024, 2025 to be exact. Indie games are out here stealing the spotlight in real time, right in front of AAA's face. We've reached the point where you can watch a major game showcase, like Summer Game Fest or PlayStation State of Play, and the indie titles are the ones that stand out. And not just because they look cool, but because they feel alive. You just see that soul and passion behind them. Everyone's been talking about this one lately, and for a valid reason. And that's Expedition 33. It's a straight up love letter to everything we miss about classic Final Fantasy, but built with modern sensibilities. Tight art direction, a unique premise, stylized combat, and it looks beautiful too. Then there's Animal Well, a weird, gorgeous little atmospheric platformer that somehow got published by Donkey's Big Mode label. One dude made it, and it was praised across the board for its intricate level design and sheer mystery. The game doesn't even have combat, but the vibes are spectacular. It's got great exploration, and it's got trust in the player's curiosity. Meanwhile, over in AAA land, you've got $70 games launching with day one patches, bloated open worlds that feel the same, and it's because they're chasing engagement metrics. But these indie devs out here, they're focused, clear, sharp. Look at Pacific Drive, a survival roguelike about driving a beat-up station wagon through a supernatural exclusion zone. That sounds ridiculous, right? But it works. Because it knows what it is. You're not asked to shoot 1,000 enemies or grind XP. You're asked to stay alive and manage your anxiety inside of a falling apart car. And it's incredible. I mean, this game doesn't feel like anything else out there. Or look at Nine Souls from Red Candle Games. It's a beautifully animated action platformer that blends cyberpunk aesthetics with Taiwanese mythology, It's rich, it's bold, and every frame looks like it was illustrated with love. And if that sounds niche, yeah, that's the point. Indies are finally embracing the fact that they don't have to please everyone. They can just be great at something specific. Even smaller titles like Little Kitty Big City, a game as you play as this mischievous cat in an open world sandbox. It was dominating when it came out. Why? Because it was clever and memorable. And people love cats, you know? But yeah, the bottom line, the indie scene isn't just impressive for a small team anymore. It's legitimately outperforming the biggest franchises in the world. Not because they're selling more copies across the board, although some of them are, but because they're delivering more impact per dollar, per minute, per moment. They stick with you, they linger, they get talked about, streamed, memed, and loved. Meanwhile, AAA titles are fading faster than ever, even the successful ones. And it's because AAA has become safe. The money is just too big to risk real experimentation. So you get variations of the same formula, the same open world, the same crafting system, the same quote-unquote player choice that doesn't really change anything. Indie games don't have that weight holding them down. They take risks. They chase ideas that would never survive a publisher pitch meeting. And because of that, they feel authentic. And let's talk about visual identity for a second. Here we go. AAA games love to boast about ray tracing and photorealism, but indie games, they own stylization. They make worlds feel like paintings, characters that feel iconic with just a few lines of dialogue, lighting that evokes emotion more than accuracy, you feel me? Indie studios like Heart Machine, Thunder Lotus, Sabotage, and Red Candle are building entire visual languages, distinct, instantly recognizable, and deeply tied to the feeling of the game itself. And that's something AAA struggles with now because they're all chasing the same hyper-polished standard. It's like indie is out here making art while AAA is trying to win a tech demo. And it's not even about budget, it's about focus, it's about clarity of design and the courage to leave some things on the table so the core experience can shine. So yeah, small teams are outperforming giants, not in every metric, but in the ones that matter, I think. They're winning hearts, they're setting trends, they're being trusted. And I keep using this word soul, but it's true. They earned trust not with scale, but they earned it with soul. You know, I was thinking about revolutions, and here's the thing about them. You usually don't realize they're happening until it's already late to stop them. And I think that's exactly where the gaming industry is right now. Not at the beginning of the shift, but deep into one. The kind of shift where the people on the ground, the players, already made the decision, and the industry is still scrambling to catch up, because indie games already won the heart of gaming. It just hasn't fully clicked with the old guard yet. The people funding $200 million open world projects, the ones clinging to franchise name recognition like it's a safety net, they still think the fight is about production values, about realism, about size and scope and star power. They still believe that a game with 700 developers and a licensed soundtrack should always outshine something made by a group of friends. But as players, we don't think that way anymore. Because we've been burned. We've seen the launches that didn't work. We've watched the day one patches roll in, and the live service models collapse, and the support for those live service games dry up after 6 months, if not earlier. And then we pick up something like Animal Well or Pacific Drive or Nine Souls, and suddenly we feel something again. These games are beautiful, but it's not because of that beauty, it's because of the game design. Because those games are willing to be weird, and they don't try to fill 100 hours just to be tired and unforgettable in 10. And so the math is shifting. People are thinking twice before they spend $70 or $80 on a AAA game with a known reputation for launching half-baked. Meanwhile, they're buying 3 or 4 indie titles for the same price and getting way more joy per dollar, more gameplay per minute, and more meaning out of the whole thing. This is not a fluke. This is the future forming in real time. And I think AAA knows it. And this makes me so happy. It feels like we're headed towards a world where authenticity is the currency, where creativity matters more than fidelity. Even though I like a good-looking game, don't get me wrong. Where trust matters way more than franchise legacy. Where the best game of the year might come from someone you've never heard of, working in some basement with no PR team, no influencer campaign, no brand deal, just raw skill and a deep love for the medium. And I love this because this industry needs new blood. It needs more risk, more heart, more messiness. The right kind of messiness though. Not the kind of messiness that, say, a studio like Bungie keeps doing, getting constantly caught stealing art from people. Not that kind of messiness. But yeah, that's all I've got to say about this topic for now. If you've made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. That's incredible. And if you want to check out more of what I have to offer, they should be somewhere showing up now at some point. And look forward to more content coming from me real soon. Talk to you later, guys. Have a good one.